Hey y'all, welcome to Fitting and Homemaking. Today we are going to be doing another small home repair slash checking items off my honey-do list. And as you can see, we will be doing it in our main bathroom here. There are a number of just small things in here that I have been wanting to take care of that have been bothering me that they're still undone lately. So we are going to go ahead and do that. I do have another video similar to this fixing up some areas in my entryway. So if you want, you can go check that out. But I kind of explained in that video that yes, even though I am married, you can see I'm married, and a honey-do list is generally something that the men folk do. These are small repairs that anyone can do. You don't need to have any special skills. You don't, need to have a lot of strength to do these. So I tend to like to leave the heavier home repair tasks to my husband, and I like doing these smaller tasks myself. So that's just a little bit of background. But let's go ahead and take a look. You can see I have my supplies laid out here. Hopefully I haven't forgotten anything, but guarantee I probably have. So that will be fun once we discover that. But let me get you off the tripod and we will take a look at what we're doing today. All right, so these are our supplies today, and those will make more sense in just a minute. So one of the first things we're going to do is I'm going to see if I can get you behind here. There is a hole right there behind this guy, and this guy's getting pretty loose. So we're going to take this off, patch the hole there, and then when we put it back on, we'll make sure that's nice and tight. Over here, you can see this around here. So we had to get our bathroom redone, and there's another one right here. We actually had a leak in this wall of our bathroom and essentially had to redo the bathroom. So this vanity's new, the flooring's new, they had to take out the toilet, put it back in. But when we did that, we used to have metal plates on the outlets from the previous owners, and they were put on a little bit too soon after the painting was done. So they start to leave these green marks, which I saw. So I took those off, and of course some of the paint came off with them. So we are going to be taking off these plates, fixing up the wall around there and doing a little bit of touch-up paint there. So that is the second project. And the other projects are going to be behind here. Let me see if I can get this. Sorry, my tripod's probably in the way, so let me shut that. All right, the other projects are up here. So this hinge is very rusted. Obviously, we're in a bathroom. This is the top hinge on the door. So I want to see if I can clean that because I'd rather not have to buy a new hinge and replace it. But then you can also see this nasty hole, and you can see that the door is hollow, right? And you can see this divot here. My husband just accidentally, he manned the door one time. We used to have a door stopper on here where it's, just hooks into the hinge, and then it has two pieces coming off so that the door would only open so far. And it definitely went through the door and obviously made a little divot here. So we took that off, but this has been here for a long time and it bothers me every time I look at it. So we are going to be filling and patching that hole today. Now, I probably won't get around to painting the door and the trim just because if I paint that part of the door, I'm going to want to paint the entire door, and I don't feel like doing that today. So I think those things are enough. So for review, we are going to be fixing a hole behind this guy and tightening him up. We're going to be touching up around these two outlets here. And then we are going to be cleaning the hinge and then fixing the hole here and fixing the door trim here where it's dented. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is take the hinge off, and I'm just using a standard Phillips head screwdriver to do that. So let's open that up. All right, now that's done. I'm going to put these somewhere safe so we don't lose them. And I'm just, ooh, that came off super easy. All right, so, and I'm not worried about the door because we still have two more hinges on there. Let's see, is it going to be possible to jiggle the pin out? Maybe not. All right, so I guess since that's fairly stuck in there, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to put some CLR in a basin and just put this in there. And I'm doing this first because I want the CLR to have enough time to get some of that rust off without having to scrub at it. All right, so we have our rusty hinge here. So I'm just going to actually put this in there. Open the CLR, and maybe I should read the directions first. Work smarter, not harder, right? Okay, so it says, I wonder if this is brass, because you're not supposed to use it on brass. Would have been good to know before getting this, although I have plenty of other stuff to use CLR on. All right, we're going to pivot. I will be right back. Okay, so I have also seen some people online removing rust like this with WD-40 or with soda, like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, that sort of thing. I don't have any soda, and I don't have any WD-40, so I'm gonna try this lubricant, which is what we use instead of WD-40. I'm gonna put some gloves on because we use this to oil our hinges and it smells really bad. And I don't want that smell on my hands the rest of the day. So let's give this a try. I did bring in our cleaning toothbrush, not to be confused with a regular toothbrush. So let's see if this gets some of the rust off. So I'm gonna let that sit on there for just a minute. All right. Then I'll scrub it with that toothbrush. All right, so while that's sitting, let's go ahead, and I have some of the outlets that I need to take off, the outlet covers, not the outlets, excuse me, and the towel rack. So let me go ahead and start taking the outlet covers off. Word of warning, make sure that if you are not very, very confident in taking your covers off, always a good idea to turn off the electricity to the outlets first. Unfortunately, the electricity is also hooked up to the lighting here, so I actually feel a little bit safer having it be light enough for me to see what I'm doing rather than turning the electricity off to them. But if at all possible, turn off the electricity to your outlets before you take the covers off, just in case you slip. You want to make sure you're being safe. Remove the trash, put that on there so that doesn't escape. All right, and let's move you guys over. All right, and I forgot to mention, this is just a flathead screwdriver, since obviously a Phillips head screwdriver would not work on these screws. And then this one is a Phillips head screw, so. And this is very fragile, and I have a lot of stuff on the towel here, so I'm actually gonna put this in the bedroom real quick so that it doesn't get damaged. And let's see if this comes off easy. It's just a little spacer. All right, so now that this stuff is off, let's go ahead and check in on our hinge and see how it's getting along, if it's doing absolutely anything or not. All right, so we're checking on our hinge. Let me get my gloves back on. Honestly, it doesn't really seem to be doing much, does it? I mean, a little bit of it's coming off. I wonder if it's any more rust than what would have come off if I was just scrubbing it with the brush by itself though. All right, I think I'm actually gonna let that sit in there for a little bit longer. Rinse these off. And because it does seem like there's some stuff coming off, but we will leave that for a little bit later. So what I want to do is I'm going to sand down the areas around the outlets and then spackle them. So I do have a brick sander or just a box sander, and these are some other grit of sandpaper, mostly for the door trim, since the door trim is not a flat surface. And we have our spackle hill here. This is just all-purpose spackling paste. And we have a putty knife. So this has separated a little bit, so I'm just going to mix it in a little bit. Hopefully that is in frame. If not, so sorry. All right. All right, so that's that one. Let's come over here on the other side and do the same thing to the other side. There aren't any major high points there, so I'm just gonna go ahead and spackle. So we'll get them when we sand off the spackle anyway. And I'm really glopping it on and kind of shimmying it into this hole since it is a little bit of a bigger hole. And that might need a second spackle. You can see it's kind of like bubbling up and dripping down a little bit. That's because this top part of the spackle is quite wet. I can get a little bit of the thicker stuff in there. Okay, that looks like it's going to do a little bit better. All right. Try to get down in here to the little bit drier stuff. And if you're having trouble getting some spackle into like a specific little crevice, just keep trying different angles. It'll get in there eventually. Give it a little shimmy. Okay, that spackle should be good for there. And it was having a little trouble getting in there, so I did put it on a little bit thicker, just like I put it on a little bit thicker here. Those are going to take a little while to dry. So let's look at the back of the door now. Okay, so hopefully you can see this okay. What I'm gonna do first is sand this down because, so I've looked at a number of YouTube videos and kind of cobbled together a generally accepted way of doing this based on the materials that I already had, so I don't have to buy a ton of new stuff to do this. Because that's what home repair is all about. You know, if you have this stuff, go ahead and use it. So first we are going to sand this smooth, and then I'm going to cut out the hole so that it has a little bit of a bevel to it and so that it doesn't have ragged edges anymore. So let's go ahead and do that. Oh, and while I am not wearing a face mask, please wear a face mask if you are doing this yourself. I am purposefully just not breathing while I do it. Okay, so you can see there was a slight attempt at a repair before, but then this part pushed in. So obviously spackle wasn't just gonna do the job. All right, so they said, next we need to actually cut the hole so that there is a bevel. I'm trying to feel. And I just have a little multi-tool here. You can use like a box cutter, anything that is, you know, sharp. And this is a little bit harder because I can't tell what is spackle and what is door at this point. Okay, so that's broken door there. And obviously this is one of those things that gets worse before it gets better. All right, I think that's about as neat as I can make it. Not very neat, but that's okay. There we go. All right. So in the other videos, what you do is you put something in the door so that we're going to actually fill this with an expanding foam, and you don't want to have the foam to like go all the way down the door, right? So normally you'd put like a crinkled piece of tissue paper or something in there just to hold the foam up so that it doesn't fall down through the door. Some other people like put a piece of wood in there and like screw it in, and then they unscrew it and just let the wood live in the door from then on. But because of the attempt at the repair before, there's actually, I don't know if you can see, but there's like a little platform here. So I'm just gonna let that be what keeps the foam from like going down all the way into the door, and go ahead and use that instead of shoving something else in there. All right, so to fill that hole, I got this big gap filler from the store. It's the Great Stuff brand. I think it was about $6. Everything else to this point, other than the CLR, which I needed for other cleaning purposes as well, it has been stuff that I have had already. So this is the first thing I needed to buy for this. It says natural color. We don't really care because it's gonna have other stuff on top of it. But let me read real quick. Instructions, read entire can label carefully. So I don't know if any of y'all had those teachers where you had tests and in the directions it says read all the questions before answering the test. And the test was actually to see if you could follow directions or not, but no one told you that. So if you actually read through all of the questions, you just had to answer the last one and then put your name on the top. Whereas if you didn't, you just started answering the questions and then you failed the test because you did not follow the directions properly. Anyhow, let me stand here and read this. Okay, so you're supposed to shake this for a minimum of 60 seconds. Shake it well for a minimum of 60 seconds, and then you open it up and you screw this little straw attachment on, and then you fill it. It says always wear gloves and protective eyewear. So I'm actually going to do that because I've never used this before. And it says to properly ventilate, so I will turn on the fan when I do this. And you're supposed to fill gaps about 50% and then cut off the extra with a serrated blade. All right, so I'm gonna put the lid on. I'm going to go get some eye protection, and I will just wear my gloves that I already have in here. So be right back. All right, y'all. About to be super sexy here. We didn't have any like regular glasses, so I get to wear these awesome sauce goggles a la high school chem class. Perfect fit unless anything decides to go on the sides. All right. And mostly I'm wearing these. I would like wear my sunglasses or something, but mostly I'm wearing these because I am going to be looking up and doing it like right above my face. And I don't trust myself. All right. Safety first, folks. All right, shake vigorously for 60 seconds. All right, I think that was about 60 seconds. opening it away from my face since I just shook this can. All right. Screwing this on. All right, I think that's on. Let me reposition you guys so you can see what I'm doing. All right, y'all, here we go. So I have a picture for how you're supposed to squeeze the top part. When done, bend straw back and press tip fully over seal on back of trigger. Okay, so we need to bend it back and put it on here when we're done. To reuse straw, you just cut it. Okay. All right, sounds good. Let's give it a go. I mean, why not? All right. All right, successfully bent the straw over onto the tip so that it stopped spewing out everywhere. And hopefully, I'm gonna press it in there a little bit. Hopefully, that will be good enough to fill most of that gap. And I'm gonna wash this off my glove real quick. All right, so we're gonna let that dry. And real quick, I'm going to put some wood putty in here. And I am just using the same wood I used before, the same wood putty that I used before. That's just plastic wood. It comes in this little tube. Oh, but I did burst the tube trying to get it out because this is very stuck. All right, well, we will use what is coming out the side. All right, here we go. And I'm gonna toss this because the tube burst. All right, so now we are just at a waiting point where we are waiting for our spackle to dry and we are waiting for our foam to solidify. And I am waiting for the hinge to soak a little bit more. So we will take a pause here. I'm gonna go do some other stuff and then I will join you back here when those things are dry. All right, see you in a little bit. All right, y'all, this feels like it is ready to sand. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. All right, that looks good. Let's sand over on this side. All right, and I'm gonna start sanding over here. This has probably got still a little bit longer. The other one probably has a little longer to dry. And with this one, even though it has a little bit longer, probably where it can dry a little bit more because it is pretty deep, I'm gonna go ahead and sand it because honestly, it's behind the towel holder. So as long as there's not a big gaping hole there, if it's a little bit uneven, I don't care. All right, yeah, you can see it's still a little bit wet there. So there's a little bit of an indentation there. But I'm fine with that because, like I said, it's largely behind the towel holder. When it was a big gaping hole, it was really obvious, but I'm fine with this. All right, so this is still, oh, it's getting pretty hard, but you can see there's still some wet foam inside that's coming out. But this part feels decently dry. So let me move the towel. And I'm not going to use the block because this is a curved piece of wood. So I'm just going to put my hand in here and get it as close to the shape of the wood as I can. All right, so that's the part where the divot was. And that feels pretty good. Like I said, I'm probably not going to paint this trim or repaint the door right now, just because I want to do the whole thing at one time. When I do that, I don't just want to open up the paint for a little bit, since the can of paint that we have for this is a large can of paint. All right, I'm going to give that a little bit longer to set, and what I'm going to do is we will go back to the other side, we will clean off the walls and start painting. So before we get to painting this, what I'm going to do is just wipe off the wall a little bit to make sure we have all of the spackle dust off, make sure that the wall is clean. Now this paint color is called Almond Latte. It's a bare paint and it is in satin. So what I did was I just went and bought a sample of it, and I think this was like $6.95 as opposed to paying $35 for a huge thing of paint that obviously we do not need that much. And this is a brush we just had before. Obviously it's been used, but we've been cleaning it off pretty well, so it should be good enough for this. So we're going to wipe this off, try to get the wall a little bit cleaner. Now these repairs may seem like really minor, but these are things that really visually get on my nerves. And every time I'm spending any sort of time in here, it just kind of like nags at me and sticks in my brain of like one more thing that I need to do, especially given the fact that we're thinking about maybe moving in, 2 to 4 years. And I understand that that's a long time, but over the course of that time, there's going to be even more little things like this that happen, right? So I might as well fix the things that I know need to be fixed now, so that it's easier for us later and we're not having to fix all the things all at once to get it into decent shape. Get that cleaned off. And like I said, this one's not perfect, but it's mostly behind towels and behind the towel holder. So I care a little bit less for this to be pristine, because even though the towel holders were something one of my college roommates gave me from our wedding registry, or gave my husband and I, they're kind of like part of the house now. We got them because I had already painted it this color and I thought they would look really cool. So you can see there's just a little indent, but there's also an indent around this from where like the little pad is. And just feather it out a little bit. All right, and that should be it for the touch-ups of the wall color. So let me go ahead and put the lid back on the sample. And something I like about the samples too is that it's entirely plastic, so it's not going to rust in here like it would if it was a full-size metal paint can. So that's nice. I think that is set enough. The only serrated knife I have is a steak knife. So we are going to use this to cut it and then just wash the snot out of it. So let's see if I can do this. Oh, it looks like the middle is still a little bit gummy, but that is okay. I'm going to try to get this off. Oh, that's unfortunate. The middle didn't set as much as I would have liked. All right, so this is what happens when we follow YouTube videos. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand this down with this. And I'm going to see, so the next step, it isn't like the foam fills it completely. The next step is to actually put spackle on it to fill the rest of the hole. Wish it would have filled a little bit more than that, but now at least we have something that we can deal with. So one thing I do wish that the cam would have had on it was like a time frame for how long that it takes to fully set. So I was just guessing by how the outside felt. All right, and just like with the wall, like I said, this is not going to be perfect. If we sell the house, we might actually need to just replace this door. It's already kind of like falling apart at the edges anyway. But that is not something that I want to do right now because we'd have to measure and get it fitted and custom cut because it's not a standard size. And this was way easier to spend, what, like $6 on this and do it? Okay, so the next step is actually to spackle over it. And you want to make sure, they said, to use a putty knife that is wider than the hole, because we're just going to be going over this hole. Now this part's going to probably take quite some time to dry. I'll try to not make such a big mess of this time. And you can still see that some of it's sticking out, but that'll be easier to sand down. At least it's not a hole. Okay, so now we're at the point of letting everything dry again. So we have paint drying on the outlet covers. You want to make, or on the area behind where the outlet covers are going to go, we want to make sure that is nice and dry. So the next time we need to take the outlet covers off, the paint doesn't come off with it. So we've got the two outlet covers. We have the area behind the towel holder. And then we have this area that needs to dry. And I'm done with this part because I'm not going to paint it. I might wash it off a little bit more, but we're going to leave it like that for now because as you can see, there's other spots that are discolored that need to be repainted as well. All right, in the meantime, I'm gonna get some of the stuff put up. I think I'm gonna let the hinge rest in that for a little bit longer just to see what happens. But a lot of this can just be thrown away and tidied up because we won't need it anymore. So this is nice and dry now. So we are going to go ahead and put our outlet covers back on. All right, and with these outlet covers, they're just a cheap plastic ones. So you want to make sure that you don't over tighten the screw. These actually have a nice little black spacer behind them, but some of them don't. If you over tighten them too much, it'll crack the plastic here. So that's as tight as I want that to get, but I think it already looks way better. All right, and the other one. All right, now we need to put the towel holder back on. So let me go grab that. So we do have this spacer behind it and then the screw that goes into the molly bolt. And I'm just gonna start this one by hand. And this one we need our Phillips head. All right, and I'm trying to get it straight. Before it was a little bit loose, so I wanna get it tight enough so it's not loose anymore. All right, but this is also stone, so I don't wanna crack the stone. All right, that looks way better, I think. I'm sure with this one, most people couldn't have told, Most people couldn't tell it was there, but I knew it was there, and I saw it every single time I used my hand towel because this side of the bathroom is mine. So very happy to have that fixed. Happy to no longer see the green around here and the big divots. It looks like I can probably still clean up the wall a little bit because there's still some dust on there. But I'm very happy with how those turned out. Okay, now with this hinge, I'm not really happy how it turned out. Obviously, I didn't have the best things to clean it with. I do want to put the hinge back on the door though. Even though there are 2 hinges on there, I don't want it to get damaged from not having the support that it needs. Did it get some of it off? I think maybe it did. And this is a really old towel that I don't care if it gets messed up, but you can see some of the lubricant coming out there. All right, so let's go ahead and put this back on. It does really need to be cleaned. Let me check my other ones, make sure I'm doing this right. Get these just started in here so I don't have to hold them. And I'm gonna get all of these most of the way in before I really tighten them up, just to make sure that the hinge is sitting where it needs to be before anything gets fully tightened. All right, so obviously not happy with how that turned out. So I will either need to, I did look up some stuff online, and there are some pastes like with flour and salt and vinegar that you can make and leave on there for a couple hours and then scrub it off. So I might try that, or just buy another $2 hinge and replace this one. So we'll see. But that's it for that hinge for now. All right, y'all, slight camera snafu. I thought it was running, but it was not, so apologies. So where we are now with this is when I put the spackle over the foam, part of the foam was still a little bit wet inside, which is why it was like a little bit gummy. But when I put the spackle on, since the spackle had water in it, it kind of set it a little bit more, but it also puffed out. So I cut off the nub of foam that was there and sanded it down. So now I'm gonna put a little bit more spackle on it for these little divot areas. And no, the spackle wasn't dry when I did that. I just went ahead and did it because it was gonna be sticking out really far. So I just essentially removed the spackle that was on top of it so I could cut it off. Now this is also probably not gonna end up perfect, but better than a gaping hole. So it looks like the foam might puff out a little bit more even. But we're gonna leave that on there like that and see how it does. And that's probably gonna take at least an hour to dry, so I will check back in with y'all a little bit later. All right, this is nice and dry now, so we are going to go ahead and give it a good sanding and see how it looks. All right, now that doesn't look super pretty or smooth, but it will look a lot better once it has one more little bit of spackle on it, probably in the center. But you know what? Since I'm not painting this right now, I'm actually going to wait to do that until just before I paint. So as you can see, it's not the best looking thing ever, but you know what? There's no massive hole here anymore. I'm going to wait to do an additional coat of spackle until I'm ready to actually paint the door, because the door has quite a few nicks and stuff in it otherwise. So I will be needing to do that right before I paint anyway. And I knew that, you know, we're going to be able to see the edges and stuff like this a little bit since I'm not painting it today. So that's just when you're doing home repair and you just have a certain amount of time to do stuff, kind of how things end up. So I think it's a vast improvement over what it was before. I'm not going to be staring at a hole. And maybe since I've gotten it to this point, I will feel motivated to actually paint and repair the entire door when I have some time to kind of get the paint out and let the paint dry and do all of that sort of thing. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And if you want more content like this, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.